In the sky above the missile division located in the Melaninsky region of Ukraine, something unusual occurred. An object, increasing in brightness, streaked past the ship, leaving behind a mystery. One of the witnesses describes, "A clear, bright star-like object, a bright star on Tennis-Metya." These observations did not go unnoticed. The facts indicate that the hunt for UFOs has become a secret part of the military doctrine of many countries, especially the USSR. Objects that appeared and disappeared at colossal speeds raised serious concerns. Just recently, a number of cases were declassified, where the appearance of such devices nearly led to a global nuclear war. One of the participants in the investigation, who personally dealt with 3 such episodes, recalls, "The first occurred on the 4th of October, 1983, at the location of one of the Strategic Missile Forces divisions in Ukraine. This was the 50th Division of the Strategic Missile Forces of the Prikarpatye Military District, where a spontaneous launch of a strategic missile with a nuclear warhead nearly occurred. That day, at 1830 Moscow time, several unidentified flying objects appeared in the sky above the division's positions, moving along trajectories inaccessible to terrestrial technology. At 21:30, the command post of the missile troops activated the automatic combat control system. All indicators on the display lit up, as during a check in an emergency situation, and most importantly, the launch indicator lit up. Such extraordinary incidents were instantly known in the Kremlin. These anomalous cases were taken very seriously, but the information remained within a narrow circle of the initiated. What these people discussed remains a mystery, but it is known that they were awaiting the results of the investigation. Since 1979, by special order of the General Staff, a special laboratory of the 22nd Central Scientific Research Institute of the Ministry of Defense was established in Mytishchi, near Moscow, which was engaged in collecting information about UFOs. For the first time, documents from the archives of this laboratory concerning emergencies at the missile base were declassified. The list of individuals who observed UFOs turned out to be quite unusual for an official military document. There were more than 1,000. There are more than 20 different theories about the origin of anomalous UFO phenomena, which can be grouped into 4 main categories. The first group suggests that this is a natural plasma formation, a product of cosmic plasma. The second group considers anomalous phenomena as artificial plasma, a result of anthropogenic interventions and scientific technical experiments. The third group associates these phenomena with the activities of extraterrestrial civilizations, while the fourth suggests the existence of parallel worlds. All these hypotheses have the right to exist, and none of them has been rejected. The beginning of this research was marked by an unexpected business trip in the autumn of 1977, which took place under conditions of strict secrecy. The president of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR, Alexandrov, stated, "We can no longer afford to ignore the UFO problem." As a result, Colonel Sokolov, a representative of the Ministry of Defense at the Academy of Sciences, found himself part of a secret commission that traveled to the city of Petrozavodsk. On the night of the 22nd to the 23rd of September 1977, an unknown object of enormous size appeared over the embankment of this city. According to eyewitnesses who observed the unusual phenomenon, the object resembled a disc-shaped aircraft from which beams of light emanated, as if surveying the city. However, the investigation of this grand event concluded surprisingly quickly. It was officially stated that a training launch of a missile had taken place at a nearby military unit, which ended in failure. The missile exploded, which became the reason for the unusual spectacle witnessed by the entire city. Nevertheless, one fact remained unexplained. Throughout Petrozavodsk, strange neat holes appeared in window panes on any floor precisely on the night of the event. All the glass was transported to Moscow and handed over to the Ministry of Internal Affairs for examination. The results turned out to be more than prosaic, and it seemed that the mystery of the Petrozavodsk phenomenon had been closed. However, in a report that sparked curiosity, it was stated that such holes could have been made in the glass by the impact of solid metal objects fired from projectile weapons, such as slingshots. But this turned out to be merely a cover for the real investigation. There was also another classified report, which is now being shown for the first time. An examination conducted at one of the closed institutes by leading Soviet specialists provided a definitive answer. The capital of the Karelian ASSR, the city of Petrozavodsk, was being probed by a particularly powerful laser. The conclusion was that if one assumes that this laser device was located at a site observed by hundreds of residents, and it was situated in the area of the pier in Petrozavodsk, then given the mutual geometry of the buildings where the windows were shattered, the energy of the laser device must have been very large. At that time, only one single laser in the Soviet Union, located in the city of Tomsk, possessed such energy. Moreover, it was a stationary model, very heavy, and no known aircraft at that time could have carried it on board, even if it had been highly desirable. From that moment, the concept of UFO was officially legitimized in the USSR, although only a narrow circle of insiders were aware of it. The first Soviet program for the study of unidentified objects, designated with the code NET, was intended solely for data collection. The research was under constant control of the higher command of the Soviet Army. In 1980, the General Staff issued a secret directive, which was shown on screen for the first time. It detailed the actions of the armed forces personnel when encountering a UFO, which was referred to here as AAY, Anomalous Aerospace Phenomena. Under this name, UFOs appeared in all military documents. To gather information about UFOs, it was ordered to engage absolutely all means of electronic and visual observation. A particular point was emphasized, mandating that each military unit appoint an officer responsible for collecting information about UFOs. To the surprise of the creators of the NET program, reports from military units flooded in. Initially, it seemed that within the framework of the program, answers to all questions would be obtained by 1980. But reality turned out to be completely different. Instead of answers, even more questions arose. All these studies were conducted in those years when discussions about UFOs were perceived as something akin to dissidence. The country was striving for a bright future, and any mention of mysticism remained in the shadows. But no one even suspected that the study of this mysticism was in full swing among the military. In 1980, a secret program called Galaxy was adopted as a further continuation of NET, and in 1985, Horizon. Many military personnel were not even aware of this, but a large hunt for UFOs was declared, and the scale of this hunt was colossal. In documents from the archives of the Ministry of Defense, a case is described that can be considered typical. A conscript soldier, Vasinovich, while guarding the standard fuel and lubricant storage, reported an unidentified aerial object that appeared over the warehouses. The day after the incident, the area was flooded with high-profile officers who took detailed statements from the watchmen and created an accurate plan of the scene. Here, the location of the unidentified flying object's appearance was marked. It is important to note who checked and approved these statements. This occurred under conditions where the incident site was an out-of-the-way warehouse, where only a madman would think to catch spies. Nevertheless, the number of such reports continued to grow, and the scale of the unidentified was simply staggering. In the early 1980s, the General Staff made an unprecedented decision. By direct order of its leadership, employees from 2 institutes were granted unlimited access to data on missile technology launches both in the USSR and abroad. This became possible due to intelligence data, including information on failed and particularly classified launches. Many high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Defense did not have such authority, but it was they who allowed military specialists to thoroughly investigate each case, leading to the creation of the Ministry of Defense's own statistics on UFOs and narrowing the search scope. According to this statistics, 85% of UFO sightings were explained as the consequences of natural phenomena or ordinary missile launches. However, the remaining 15% defied any explanation, and it was these that became the target of a hunt, the results of which turned out to be unexpected for the hunters themselves. Pilots reported sightings in Taldykorgan and Azhayevka in the Far East. One of them, Lieutenant Boris Korotkov, in October 1981, underwent a real UFO attack near Kaliningrad. He miraculously landed his Su-32. In a photograph taken after the landing, it is visible that a piece seems to have been torn from the tail assembly of the aircraft. The air combat diagram reproduced by the pilot himself also shocked specialists. At the moment of the encounter with the UFO, the aircraft's instrument, which only fails in the event of a disaster, the famous black box, malfunctioned. This meant that if it were not for the pilot's courage, the reasons for this, fortunately, averted disaster would never have been established. Further investigations revealed an even more frightening picture for the military. The suspicion arose that UFO sightings mainly occurred near military facilities. For example, in the area of Molino and the Dzerzhinsky district of the Gorky region, as well as in the vicinity of Plesetsk. In the Borisogledsk air hub, where flights were conducted, cases of UFO sightings had been recorded for up to 20 or even 30 years. The hunting grounds narrowed down to specific coordinates, although the price of this hunt was the high emergency descents of pilots. In the year 1982, a Spark aircraft under the command of Guards Captain Kopakin, upon the order of command, attempted to enter an inexplicable green cloud that had suddenly appeared over one of the airfields. This attempt nearly cost the crew their lives. As soon as they approached and began to enter the cloud, the aircraft was shaken by a monstrous turbulence, and in the headphones of the helmets, a piercing sound of a siren rang out, exceeding the pain threshold, and the dangerous altitude indicator lit up. Difficulties in observing unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, manifested in the area of Boris-Grabensky almost every week. Aircraft took to the air, risking collision with these phenomena. Scientists established that all UFOs share one thing in common: plasma. Despite the variety of their behavior, they resembled plasma clouds. Plasma on Earth can only exist stably in bulky plasma toroids. However, in space, under the conditions of the universe, different laws apply. Plasma is the primary state of matter in the universe. All stellar formations, all stars, to one degree or another, are plasma. The situation begins to clarify, and the fears of the military can be considered merely as overcaution. In reality, the most common substance in the universe periodically penetrates from space into the Earth's atmosphere. Nevertheless, further research cast doubt on this seemingly clear conclusion. Many scientists attempted to comprehend on the basis of what physical phenomena large glowing spheres could exist in the atmosphere, which were presumed to be plasma formations. The question arose, does this not contradict known laws of physics? One of the researchers, who worked at the Institute of Radio Engineering and Radioelectronics of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR under the guidance of academician Vladimir Alexandrovich Kotelnikov, noted that their research reached a negative conclusion. Formations of such sizes, observed as plasma objects, cannot exist under the pressures and gas composition of the atmosphere. There remained one last assumption. If there exists something that cannot exist, then someone must be creating it artificially. Specially designed equipment for these studies meticulously recorded one of the unidentified objects, which appeared like the effect of a bomb explosion. The examination revealed that there is something inside the plasma formation. Could it be the legendary spacecraft of aliens surrounded by a plasma shell? According to aerospace engineers, such a shell provides the aircraft with supernatural capabilities, speed, and maneuverability, while also serving as an ideal protection. However, such a level is currently unattainable for earthly technology. Surrounding at least some active parts of an aircraft with a plasma shell is a task that can be solved, but, as far as is known, no project has provided a clear positive answer. Nevertheless, dozens of documents and photographs led to contemplation about the intelligent, that is, directed movement of these plasma formations. The military does not like to use the word aliens. Indeed, it is difficult to trust such testimonies. It is hard to imagine that an extraterrestrial being is a green biped with antennas on its head. However, there are serious hypotheses about the ways in which other intelligent life could appear on Earth. One opinion belongs to a scientist who worked for a long time in the closed system of the Soviet military-industrial complex. He claims that there are certain constants that determine the structure of our matter and the laws governing our world. These are the so-called fundamental constants. In our world, there are about 50 of them, including the charge of the electron, the speed of light, and Planck's constant. Let us imagine that one of these constants changes, for example, the charge of the electron. What will happen to the materiality of our world? The atom as a structure will cease to exist, and this matter will disintegrate, taking on a completely different structure. The materiality of this world will become entirely different. In 1957, an American physicist proposed the hypothesis of multiple universes, where physical constants can take on any conceivable values. In these worlds, matter organized itself into more complex structures, and living and intelligent beings also emerged there. These beings reached such a level of development that they could manipulate the laws of matter formation, change the constants, and even interact with our world. Although this assumption may seem fantastic, recently documents from special archives of the Ministry of Defense have become available, which many scientists interpret as evidence of failed contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. One such case occurred on the night of June 22, 1982, in Leningrad, at Tikhoretsky Avenue, House 5, Building 1, Room 1, in the dormitory of the Leningrad Military Communications Academy. Major Engineer Gorbunov, being in the room, turned his head to the left and saw in the glass of the open window the reflection of a bright orange sphere. He visually determined that its size in the reflection was slightly smaller than a soccer ball, but by the nature of the reflection, he understood that the actual size was significantly larger. At that moment, he felt a relaxing jolt, as if a wave reminiscent of a weak electric current passed through his body. Turning his head away from the object, he tried to look at it again, but received another jolt. Attempting to get up from the bed to approach the window, he received a third jolt and a warning not to move. Each such case was thoroughly double-checked before it made it into classified documents, and the military became particularly attentive to such photographic materials. Some of them indeed resembled man-made devices, but their movement remained a mystery. Despite repeated attempts to reproduce such machines, success was not achieved. However, this can be considered the first step towards the embodiment of extraterrestrial technologies. Among the classified developments of the American military were the so-called super aircraft, but as it appears, they did not meet expectations. Nevertheless, there exists footage that is considered authentic, capturing the moment of the crash of a real extraterrestrial ship. Interestingly, the United States is regarded as the world leader in UFO research, and periodically rumors about significant progress by Americans in this direction leak into the press. The reason for this leadership lies in the secret instruction of the U.S. Army on the study of UFOs, which, despite its complete secrecy, contains an entire chapter on working with the media. This chapter explains that all fabrications and jokes on this issue should be officially published, while technical details should be omitted. This gives rise to suspicions that the research scope in the United States is quite extensive, and what makes it into the press, like various rumors, serves either as a cover or a distraction from targeted research. Sensational documentary footage that occasionally appears may be mere disinformation. But what real research were the American and Soviet militaries hiding at such a high cost? The answer, strangely enough, lies on the surface. Let us recall how defenseless modern military technology is when in contact with UFOs. At best, it simply breaks down. This is the perfect weapon, and if we are currently unable to understand the nature of this effect, perhaps it is worth simply blindly replicating it to incapacitate all electronic systems of a potential adversary with one strike at the right moment, just as UFOs do. Here, two spectrums open up. On one hand, it is possible to model the individual properties of these anomalous phenomena. Based on existing anomalous phenomena, new weapons can be developed that are based on principles similar to those observed in UFOs. However, if such phenomena indeed take place and exert influence, there arises a necessity to create protection systems against undesirable effects that may stem from external factors. For decades, this has been a secret arms race known only to a select few. The goal has been to create weapons that utilize different physical principles, which could render the missile nuclear potential of the adversary meaningless. However, the costs of even simply reproducing the effects of UFOs have proven to be colossal. Even the richest country in the world, the United States, could not carry this out painlessly and in secrecy, leading to the necessity of a diversionary maneuver. Many analysts believe that the current, extremely expensive but completely ineffective program, known worldwide, was created precisely to direct the lion's share of allocated funds towards entirely different military research and programs. Precedents already existed. In the 1980s, the Americans made a significant technical leap, largely thanks to the now-forgotten Strategic Defense Initiative known as Star Wars of Ronald Reagan. At that time, approximately $60 billion were spent, which is an enormous sum. The result of this was the absence of any strategic defense program in the United States. Nevertheless, important successes were achieved in various breakthrough areas of science and technology. In the early 1980s, a system was created in Alaska that completely replicated the destructive effect of UFOs. The choice of location was obvious. In the event of a nuclear war, the majority of Soviet missiles would be directed towards the territory of the United States via the North Pole. On their path, they would encounter a system of 180 relays creating a special magnetic field. The Americans managed to develop the HAARP system, which is officially presented as a research program for studying the upper atmosphere of the Earth. In fact, this is a high-frequency heating stand of high power, capable of creating extended plasma formations as a result of heating the atmosphere with a powerful beam of radio waves. This can alter the trajectory of radio wave propagation necessary for both space and military communications, as well as create plasma formations capable of destroying objects, including aircraft. These plasma clouds, created by the HAARP system, can turn any missile attack into something entirely different. Even the simple reproduction of extraterrestrial technologies has elevated earthly warfare to a new level that few are aware of. However, even the creators of the system are afraid to activate HAARP at full power. If the system is activated at maximum, geoanomalies may arise, including the shaking of the Earth's geomagnetic field and the inversion of magnetic poles, which could lead to natural disasters that are uncontrollable. This could result in a global catastrophe, up to and including changes in the Earth's orbit. Nevertheless, HAARP is in perfect condition, as confirmed by photographs stored in the archives of intelligence agencies. According to reports, testing of the system is supposed to begin as early as 2002, and it is likely that a significant portion of the allocated funds will be spent on these tests. This is a deadly experiment, as some data suggests that the destructive power of HAARP is not the latest development of the American military. Almost nothing is known about similar domestic systems. However, there is no doubt the hunt for UFOs continues. Nevertheless, what real conclusions can be drawn from this hunt today, and what conclusions are the opponents of war striving for? It would likely be naive to believe that we have been shown all the documents and told about all the programs. One thing is clear: humanity has approached the boundaries of a new physics, capable of either opening the road to the stars or erasing people to dust along with the planet. Games with UFOs have proven to be deadly dangerous, and therefore the whole truth about these experiments and observations is likely to become known only after a long time. An object is visible in the right porthole. The position of our ship was such that the Earth was located in 4 upper parishes and without a field, with a course angle of 92 degrees.